Spider-Man No Way Home. Spoiler edition, man. Spoiler edition. It says it right there. Spoilers. This was good. It had a lot of things going on, a lot of moving parts. I think this is probably going to be the best movie of the year. I know there's some other things coming out, but they only got a week, 2-3 weeks, and then it's out. It's done. The year's over with. This is going to be the best movie of the year, mostly because they didn't release a lot. I get that, but even if they did, this would be the best movie of the year. So, Spider-Man No Way Home. Everyone knows who Peter is. Peter is Spider-Man. Spider-Man is Peter. Same thing. They know. People know, and it's causing him trouble. His family, his friends, everybody is suffering, and he wants to fix it. So he goes to Doctor Strange. He's like, "Hey man, can you fix this?" And he's like, "Yeah, I can fix it." And Wong, who is now the Sorcerer Supreme, is like, "Don't do it. You still gonna do it? Oh, okay. Well, don't tell me about it." And then he leaves to parts unknown, I guess. Maybe Karmitage. So Spider-Man's like, "Yeah, help me out." So Doctor Strange is hocus pocusing the spell, and Spider-Man starts changing the spell, which he really shouldn't be able to do, but he's saying things in the circle of the spell. And Doctor Strange is like, no, don't do that. And he keeps doing it. He keeps messing up the spell. And then the spell gets out of hand and Strange has to contain it. And that's really where it starts. Instead of, he was going to take away the memory of that Spider-Man is Peter Parker. The spell got altered, changed, flim-flammed, and it eventually became anyone who knows who Peter Parker is, anyone who knows that Peter Parker is Spider-Man, is getting sucked through the universe into the MCU, the main MCU. So, which was kind of cool, because we got, and I've been waiting like a week to say this, we got all of the Spider-Man villains from the other movies, not all of them, but a few of them, and we got Tobey Maguire, and we got Andrew Garfield, and that was the coolest. And you know what? Everybody's saying that was the coolest thing, but to me, one of the coolest things was how they got there. Ned got a hold of Doctor Strange's sling ring, and he's just magicking it up. He's like, "Think of Parker, think of Spider-Man." And they showed up. He said, "Think of Spider-Man." And Andrew Garfield, dressed as Spider-Man, walked through. And then he's like, "Thinking about Peter Parker." And Tobey Maguire, dressed as Peter Parker, walked through. And they were on Earth, wandering around, looking for the other Spider-Man. They realized they were on another planet, or another universe, another dimension, maybe all three. And they decided that they were going to walk through and see if, maybe this is him. I don't know why they walked through, because on their planet there's no magic, so they didn't know what that swirling circle was. That looked dangerous. I wasn't walking that, but they did it. So they come through, and you've got 3 Spider-Mans, a total of 3 Spider-Man, and you've got the Sinister 5. There was a 6th villain there, sorta, but he wasn't on the team. So it was. I have questions. More than talking about the show, I have questions. I would like to know what they're going to do with Ned, because there was a part where the other 2 Spider-Men tell him, "Yes, these things happen in both of our universes. Yes, this happened. Yes, my best friend tried to kill me, became a supervillain. Oh, you too? My best friend became a supervillain, tried to kill me too." And they both look at Peter. He's like, nah. And they look at Ned. Ned, in the comics, becomes a supervillain that tries to kill Spider-Man. So I'm like, uh-oh. So Ned, using magical abilities, and in the comic books becoming a hobgoblin with the magical abilities, I think that's going to make him the magical version of the hobgoblin. The hobgoblin is they wanted to change the Green Goblin, so they gave the character to someone else, and they changed his appearance and the way he fought, the whole thing. They gave him Super Spider-Man-like powers, and I actually like the Hobgoblin more than I like the Green Goblin. Green Goblin's been around longer and everything. He's caused more damage, but the Hobgoblin to me is a more interesting character. Multiple people have played that part in the comics, so they could have a multitude of people playing him in the movies if they wanted. They probably won't spend that much time on it, but Ned was one of the more popular, dare I say, the more popular Hobgoblin, because he was friends with Parker. They knew each other. They weren't as close as they are in the movies, but they knew each other. They were close. So I think he's going to be the magical version of the Hobgoblin. After saying that, there were so many good things. I was saying before that I thought that since with the promotion, they were showing so much of Jamie Foxx, who is the biggest star of the villains. Some people may say that other people act better, but he's the largest name as far as the villains are concerned. So he was doing a lot of promotion with Spider-Man. And I thought they were going to give him a bigger part. I'm like, he's going to be the main guy. And he had a bigger part. He had a way bigger part and everything. And I thought it was cool. But at the same time, Jamie Foxx was a bigger actor. Electro wasn't as big as Dr. Octopus. Dr. Octopus was more popular, so I figured they would give it to him. They did not. But there were so many things. Doctor Strange was not in it as much as I expected. I thought he was going to be like the main character. Most of what you saw in the previews, that's more than half of what he did in the movies. So he was only in it a little bit more than that. And there's a death, old Batman comic book, there's a death in the family. And it hits Peter pretty hard. I felt bad. There was a lot of emotional moments in that, not just the action and stuff, but raw emotion in there too. And that was double tough. Being a full-on adult, rugged prototype of manhood, it was difficult for me to hold them tears back. But man, there was a few times the stuff happening there, and I'm like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. It was tough, you know. It was an emotional roller coaster, but it was so good. I hear that they're going to do another trilogy with the Spider-Man character, and that's great. I've also heard that both Garfield and Maguire are probably coming back, and I would like to see all three Spider-Men in some fashion. They made mention of Miles Morales. Electro is talking to Spider-Man, and he's like, you know, you're from the neighborhood, you live in Brooklyn, you work in Brooklyn, and you know, with that mask, couldn't see your face and everything, you help poor people. I always figured you was black. Message. So I was like, they're talking about Miles Morales, who actually has been hinted at in the Marvel-verse already because his uncle's there. So he's got to be there, you know? If my mom showed up somewhere in a universe, I'm probably there because there's my mom, unless she hasn't had me yet. But he's there. He's there. So I'm wondering how they're going to bring him forward too. So they can do a full-on Spider-Verse type deal. I was really expecting two other villains that are kind of big Spider-Man villains, actually three of them, and they didn't show up, neither hide nor hair, but it was still a great movie. Spider-Man gets in and out of a lot of danger. He goes through changes. He goes through his wardrobe. He apparently went through all of his money because he was broke. He goes and moves into a neighborhood that's kind of a bad neighborhood. But he's Spider-Man. I mean, what does it matter? And he's not in college, man. He lost Mary Jane, which I think is going to be the reason that Ned and Spider-Man are going to be at odds with one another, because Strange in the end removed the knowledge of Peter Parker at all. Nobody knows who Peter Parker is. No one has ever heard of him. So with that in mind, Spider-Man decides to go back, Peter Parker decides to go back and introduce himself to Mary Jane. But it looked like Mary Jane and Ned were kind of overly friendly with one another. If not dating at that time, they seemed to be friendly enough that if they spent a lot of time in college, they were probably going to be dating. So I'm thinking, this is my theory, Peter Parker shows up and he gets Mary Jane because they have a chemistry with one another. He can get her back, but it's Ned's girlfriend in the future. It's Ned's girlfriend. So Ned now does not like Parker, who he doesn't know. He doesn't know is his best friend. So he can use his Bruja powers, his magical witch powers, and become the Hobgoblin. Because the Hobgoblin, follow me, the Hobgoblin, when he was on Earth, made a series of his bombs and the glider and all of that kind of stuff. He made a brand new outfit, the whole shebang. So somewhere there's a goblin base, somewhere. And Ned could, if he finds that and uses the hocus pocus on it, poof, you got the Hobgoblin. So I think maybe that's how they're going to introduce it. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm thinking that that's how it's going to happen. We'll come back and we'll talk about it, and see, maybe not. But I think so. There's definitely a lot of story left to go. A lot of story. I'm thinking of these different stories that Spider-Man has had that they could bring into the MCU. A lot of them, because he's separated now. Like the comic books, he's separated from the Avengers because they don't know him. He's separated from Stark Tech because Stark's not around and nobody else knows him. Happy doesn't know him now. Nobody knows who Parker is. So he's like the comic book Spider-Man now. He's all his own, doing his thing. He's friendly neighborhood, style now. So that ought to be cool. Opportunity for brand new stories. Kraven is supposed to be coming. Big Spider-Man villain. The Vulture's still out there. Morbius is out there. And he's going to be doing this by himself. It's going to get spooky in his neighborhood. Man. Good movie, though. I would give this movie, it was so good that I would give this movie, if you don't know, you probably already know, I'm going to give this movie a solid 9. 9 bags of popcorn. It's almost perfect. Almost perfect in my eyes. 9 bags of popcorn. Because that's what I think. More importantly, what do you think? Now that you had a chance to watch the video, let's talk about it in the comments. And as always, if you like the video, if you like the content, subscribe. And then like.
Popcorn passport. Get your popcorn passport.